In 1986, Toy Biz took many of their previous Marvel Comics toy lines and combined them into a brand new line called Marvel Universe. It was made up of existing Spider-Man, X-Men, and Avengers figures, as well as many others. It included heroes like Cyclops of the X-Men and villains like Doctor Doom. And today, for the 5 weeks of Halloween, we'll be taking a look at Morbius the Living Vampire, here on KREED'S Collection. Welcome back, foolish mortals, to another episode of KREED'S Collection and the 5 weeks of Halloween. I am your host, KREED, and today we are taking a look at Morbius the Living Vampire from the 1987 Marvel Universe toy line by Toy Biz. As you can see, I have Morbius here in the box. He also has his included vampire bat. And I have to say, I'm a big fan of this card art. I like how it includes a lot of the Marvel heroes across it. Here on the back of the card, you can see some instructions on how to use the figure's action feature. And over here, there's a little story about Morbius that's very appropriate for Halloween. It involves Wolverine and a few other heroes taking on the monsters of science, Morbius and Halloween Jack. A perfect spooky tale for this living vampire. But now it's time to exhume Morbius from his tomb of plastic and cardboard. I always cut the packages so I can open it like a book. And there he is. Oh, Morbius. When Dr. Michael Morbius, a famous biochemist, contracts a rare blood disease, he uses experimental self-treatment with genetic samples of vampire bats in an attempt to cure himself. Sadly, instead, he mutates into a living vampire with abilities and traits very similar to an actual vamp. Morbius must now feed regularly on human blood to keep his disease in check. If he does not, he will succumb to the disease and die. When he hungers, he becomes unreasonable and murderous, but once fed, feels regret for his actions. While seen by many as a villain, Morbius is known to sometimes use his abilities to save rather than harm. And now that we know a bit more about Morbius, let's take a closer look. While Morbius is not an actual vampire, he's a vampire through science, he still has a very classic vampire look to him. With his pale skin, red eyes, and fangs, he has an incredibly demonic and evil look. But this guy can hide in plain sight by simply turning back to his original human form. His human form isn't quite as good. You can see one of his eyes is a little higher than the other, but this feature is still really cool. When he transforms back though, sometimes the face is a little off, but you can just adjust it like so, and it works just fine. Squeezing his legs activates the feature, so you can make him turn into a human or back into his vampire form. This feature is really great, and it's because it doesn't get in the way of any of his articulation or posability. Well done. Now here on the front of him, you can see he has a bright red button-down shirt, and this coat is rubber, and it's actually a vest, as you can see, but they painted his sleeves black, and that gives the illusion that the coat is all one piece, a lot like the old vintage Star Wars figures. His veins are painted silver, and it has a really creepy look. He's wearing jeans with a standard black belt, and they go down into black boots. It's a very 90s take on a vampire, and I love it. Morbius has always been one of my favorite villains in Marvel. It's a shame he didn't get a better movie. Morbius. What do you want, Spider-Man? Did you hear the news? They made a movie about you. What? My own movie? Yeah, in the Sony Spider-Man Cinematic Universe. Is that what they're calling it now? I don't know. Who cares? But you've got your own movie. That's amazing. But who's playing me? Well, that's the bad news. It's Jared Leto. No! Now that is truly terrifying. Anyway, now we're going to move on with Morbius's articulation. Here at the knee, he does have a 90-degree bend, or pretty much, but his coat does get in the way a little bit. And then here at the hip, he can go all the way up into another front 90. And his leg actually would rotate back as well, but again, the coat gets in the way. Here at the shoulder, he does have a joint that goes around full 360 if you want, elbow bends at almost a 90. And if you include his transformation, his head also turns. And that's it. That covers all 9 points of articulation for Morbius. Morbius's one included accessory is this giant vampire bat. It's made out of a very pliable rubber, so as you can see, it's quite flexible. I don't think you would break it very easily. There's not much going on here on the back, and it's got a really cool design here on the feet where they're open and they can actually hitch onto something and hang just like a bat would. And as you can see, it fits perfectly on Morbius's arm, and I think this is a great way to display them. You can find Morbius's copyright information on the bottom of his feet, 1995 Marvel Toy Biz, and on the other foot, made in China. I'd like to take a minute before we move forward to point out that Morbius was released in 1995 as part of the Spider-Man the Animated Series line, and as I'm sure you can see, it's exactly the same figure, just repackaged in 1997 as part of the Marvel Universe line. And now for our He-Man size comparison. As you can see, Morbius is a bit smaller than He-Man and not nearly as ripped, but what are you going to expect? He's suffering from a blood disease. Give the guy a break. And here he is compared to Web Shooter Spider-Man from the Spider-Man the Animated Series toy line, which of course Morbius is originally from, and I feel like these two look really cool together. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch my toy retrospective for Morbius the Living Vampire from the 1997 Marvel Universe toy line by Toy Biz. And with that, the 4th episode of the 5 weeks of Halloween has come to an end. There's only one episode left, and it will be October 31st, Halloween night. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please leave a thumbs up, and if you have any time, leave a comment as well. I love reading and responding to them. And while you're at it, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. I would certainly appreciate it, and it would help my channel grow. I do a retrospective on a toy from my vintage collection on Wednesdays, so I hope to see you next week and every week after, here on KREED'S Collection.